No, it's not oversaturated. You haven't missed the boat.
This market will never be saturated because once you do this work, you become N of one. Trust me. What you're going to bring is going to be so much different than everyone else. Your offer has to deal with, here's how we get you back your time.
Yep.
So that you can achieve your dream outcome.
Know your niche, know your audience, and position yourself as the go-to resource to solve a particular problem for that particular audience.
So Dean, there's been a ton of search traffic and all kinds of things going on around this whole fractional executive thing and industry. And the industry has exploded. And I know you've been hearing from people, I mean, did I miss the boat? Is this the right time? Is the whole fractional executive thing oversaturated at this point? Or should I just go do something different? So today on the Fractional Pros Podcast, let's dive into, is this the right time for you to start your fractional business? Hey everybody, welcome. As always, he's Dean, I'm Atiba, and Dean, should people be scared that it's oversaturated right now in the fractional industry?
Yeah, this question, you hear about it all the time. I hear about it all the time. And it's funny, right? I kind of chuckle because if you look at the number of small and mid-sized businesses in the US that really do need help, and you look at every single person that calls themselves a fractional on LinkedIn, the number of people that call themselves fractional is such a small percentage of the businesses that need help that no, absolutely not. I mean, I'll give you the end of the podcast at the beginning, right? My conclusion is no, it's not oversaturated. No, you haven't missed the boat. But here's the truth though, is there's a lot of people out there that call themselves a fractional. Now, whether they really even understand what the fractional model really is or not, that's another whole conversation we'll have during this episode. But I actually believe this is the right time, the best time to lean into this. And I'll cover a few reasons why, and then we can dig into them. One is that small and medium-sized business owners and executives are starting to really understand the value of hiring fractionals, right? 10 years ago, when I started doing fractional, 15 years ago when I started doing fractional, I had to explain it over and over again and share the value of why this fractional model was better than X, Y, Z. It's less needed now because there are more people that know about it. So the need is increasing based on the awareness of the model. So I'd say that's one reason why now is a really good time. Secondly, with all of the uncertainty in the world, uncertainty in the US economy and the politics and all the things going on, uncertainty does what? It causes business owners to contract, to hold, to get smaller, to get safe, which means maybe they are not hiring that next director, VP or C-level person, or maybe they're downsizing their headcount, right? But that doesn't offset the need
for the help.
For that expertise, right? So the need is there, but they don't have a way to do it in a low risk, lower cost way. Yeah. And I think the third opportunity is that we're starting to see some fractionals that call themselves fractionals, they're trying to be fractionals, are not being successful. They're not landing clients and they're going back to corporate. So for those three things, if nothing else, at the right time, or the reason why now is the right time to really lean into the fractional model.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And actually, let me add one if I could, which kind of touches on where you were a bit there and takes you back home, actually, Dean. I know several people from England that I've talked to about becoming a fractional executive, and they're like, what is that? And so as we look at the globalization of things, globally, the term fractional doesn't even totally exist yet. And so there's so many markets around the globe outside of the US where there is massive opportunity for fractional. But let's say that that's today. let's say the world explodes and someone is watching this episode. You're watching this episode a year, 2 years from now, and you're thinking, man, that was so 2 years ago. Okay. And you're wondering, I wish I can get some updated advice from these guys. Well, let me just tell you, you don't need updated advice. Even if you're watching this 10 years from now, you don't need updated advice. Let me share a story with you. Kylie Jenner became one of the youngest billionaires in this country. And she did it in the makeup industry. Now, I don't know what y'all know about the makeup industry, but let me just tell you, there are a few industries more saturated than makeup. And she was a late player to the game and became a billionaire in the makeup industry, an oversaturated industry. And she did that by, one, understanding that there was an audience that was unserved in that oversaturated industry, focusing on that audience and bringing a product and the service to that audience that they needed. So even if it's 10 years from now and you're a fractional CFO and there are a billion fractional CFOs on the planet, trust me, there is still a market for you and what you bring, because what you're going to bring is going to be so much different than everyone else. And that's the thing. That's the key. You're not a fractional CFO or a CX. That's not just what you are. It's about what your uniqueness brings to who you're serving.
Yeah. I think the key thing that you shared there, Atiba, was Kylie found her tribe, her niche, her audience. Yes. She didn't try and sell everything to everyone. She didn't say, I've got great makeup, come buy my stuff. She appealed to a very particular audience that her brand resonated with, right?
Yes.
She's not selling to baby boomers, right? She's selling to her peers in a lot of ways. So I think the opportunity here, regardless of what business you're in, whether you're a fractional or you're selling auto parts, I don't care. Know your niche, know your audience, and position yourself as the go-to resource to solve a particular problem for that particular audience, right?
Yes.
So if we bring it back to fractional, CFO example, I spoke to a fractional CFO in the last couple of weeks. And I asked him, tell me your niche. Who are you selling to? He said, I'm a fractional CFO for any manufacturer, any small manufacturer. I said, okay. How busy are you? Is your pipeline full? Have you got a full client roster? No, I'm struggling, man. It's hard to generate leads. I'm not closing deals. It's a struggle. When 1 and 1 added up comes to 2, you have to understand that, right? He was struggling because he didn't have a clearly defined niche. He wasn't the go-to visible expert to solve a particular problem for that particular audience in his unique way. So as I mentioned,
but so many people though, Dean, will think, oh my gosh, you're serving small manufacturers. Of course you've niched down far enough. But what you're saying there is one, no, and two, and this is the key, and two, what is the actual solution that you're bringing to them?
Mm-hmm.
It's that marriage.
Yeah.
It's that marriage.
It is.
Right?
Yeah, it is. Well, if we think about how we buy, whether you're buying a car or a pair of shoes or business services, right? You're not buying a car probably just to have a car in your driveway. You're buying a car to solve a problem, to be able to get from point A to point B in a particular way. If you're in construction, you need to carry stuff. If you have a bunch of kids, you need lots of seats and car seats and cup holders. You're buying a solution to the problem, right? Yeah. And so as a fractional, we're not selling fractional services. That's not the goal here.
No.
The goal is what? Is to help the business owner achieve their goals and dreams through our services, through our expertise, through our guidance. So It's not enough. It's just not enough to say that you work with a particular industry of a particular size.
No, but you're absolutely right, because ultimately the business owner wants what? A business owner, when they're hiring you, wants certainty. Okay. When you buy that car, you want the certainty that all your kids are going to fit, plus their stuff.
Yeah. And it's safe and all the things. Yeah.
Right? But that's what you're buying. You're buying. So when we talk about solving the problem and the solution to their problem, the solution to their problem means that they were certain that it's going to solve it, because guess what? There are other cars that they could have bought. There are other solutions that they could have bought, but they didn't buy those because they weren't certain it would solve their problem.
Yep. So how can we, as advisors, even I won't even say fractional, right? As advisors, position ourselves differently from all the other 150,000 people that are on LinkedIn calling themselves a fractional?
Yeah. And it's the ultimate question, right? And the answer, which we've said, is very, very simple. But that's the problem. Because the answer seems too simple.
Yeah.
And that is provide a solution to a problem that gives them certainty. But you have to understand what problem you're solving.
Yeah. You do.
Okay.
You do.
And this is the key to offer strategy and understanding the offer you're bringing to market. The first thing you have to answer after you understand, okay, here's the audience that I'm serving, is what is the actual, as I like to call it, bleeding neck problem that they're having. Right. And if you don't understand bleeding neck, just real quick on that, look, if you get a cut on your finger right now, like a splinter, what are you going to do? You're going to pull it out. You might suck your finger. You might put a little Band-Aid on it and you move on. Your day continues. Okay. But if a boulder hits you and now there's blood squirting out of your neck, what are you going to do? Well, everything stops and you go straight to the hospital. And as a fractional, as an advisor, you want to solve a problem that is a bleeding neck that they say they have to solve right now. But when you do that, you want to be able to come in and say, here's my solution. Okay.
Yeah. And in that, you have to increase the perceived likelihood of success in the mind of the buyer, right?
Yes.
So I'm sure everybody that's listening to this podcast has run across Alex Hormozi. He's everywhere, right? If you check out his $100 Million Offers book, he talks about this concept of the value equation. And this is a really good illustration of how to put this into practice. So there's this equation, right? There are two components above the equation and two at the bottom. The top two components are dream outcome and perceived likelihood of achievement, right? In the mind of your prospect. And you want those to be as big, as high as possible. Okay? At the bottom half of the equation, it's time delay and effort and sacrifice. You want those to be low as possible. So in the mind of your buyer, you want to make it feel like they can achieve that dream outcome with a high likelihood of success in the shortest amount of time, with the least amount of effort and sacrifice. So those four components, you have to understand those top two to be successful as a fractional. What is the dream outcome that you're helping your prospect achieve? And how are you positioning yourself to increase their perceived belief that likelihood of success is high? That's it, guys. If you can figure out those two things, you will stand out from every other fractional literally on the planet, because otherwise you're going to be the CFO that works with small manufacturers and struggling to land business. So what is the dream outcome that you're helping your business owner prospect achieve? Spend your time figuring that out. Okay? That's where we need to start. That's a key action item for today's podcast. Figure out really clearly what the dream outcome is. That's where it all begins. There you go. That's exactly it. So that top of the equation, dream outcome, multiplied by perceived likelihood of achievement. Those need to be as high as possible. They need to be believable.
But be clear, You can only do that when you know exactly who you're serving. Okay?
Yep.
Because a small manufacturer who's manufacturing, say, batteries for a mouse is very different than a small manufacturer who's manufacturing screws for tractors.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay? And they're going to have very different dream outcomes.
Yep. 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 That is such an important distinction, because that also impacts, and this will be another episode on how to price your fractional services, is impacted by what I call external factors. These components of what makes up an ideal prospect.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We'll get into that in another episode, but the dream outcomes is so important. And Atiba mentioned a concept earlier in the podcast episode about intention. This dream outcomes and intention are intertwined. So we have to understand, not only, like, let's say, for example, it's this manufacturer wants to, I don't know, grow their business $1 million in net profit in the next 24 months. Right. Pretty clear, right? Okay, we understand that. We have to understand how we can impact that. But I would want to know why. What is the impact of that growth? What is the impact of that profit? Is it the ability to now buy another company, be more profitable, to sell, to have something substantial they can pass on to their kids as a legacy or a family-owned business? They want to take that profit and put it into a non-profit to help orphanages in Africa. Understand the intention, because that intention is the emotional tie, right?
That keeps them going.
It keeps them going, but also creates the urgency to take action.
Yeah.
So a lot of psychology in this process, but the more you think about it and how it ties to your ICP, your ideal client profile, the easier it is for you to separate from the other 150,000 fractionals on LinkedIn.
Yes. And it's crucial. You mentioned Hormozi's book earlier, Dean, and yes, I love that book as well. And one of the things that I love in Hormozi's book is how it starts. He starts by telling us that, hey, listen, those of us who are out there trying to sell something and struggling or selling very few, you're putting in the same amount of effort in trying to figure out how to sell your thing as those of us who made $100 million. The only difference is how we focused our effort.
Yeah.
And he focused his effort here on this equation and figuring this out. And so, Dean, you just went through the whole dream outcome and really looking at that. And this is why this market will never be saturated, because once you do this work, you become N of one. You become uncomparable to anyone else and what you bring to that specific audience that you serve. So Dean talked a lot about the dream outcome. Let's talk about the perceived likelihood of achievement. Yeah. And let's take the intention conversation even further here. Mm-hmm. And what I want you to hear and feel as we talk about perceived likelihood of achievement is this is the business owner's belief of whether or not they can actually accomplish the dream outcome. Do they believe, and what's stopping them from believing that they can achieve the dream outcome? Now, this isn't always what they say out of their mouth. This is often what's going on internally. Okay? Again, it gets tied to intention because that's the part of where they want to go. But what is it that's going on internally that makes them feel like I can't get there? Okay. I was just doing this actually a little earlier today with another business owner, going through and crafting offer. And we were looking at the fact that, so these business owners that she's working with, they have tons of leads. They have more leads than they know what to deal with. Okay. So they don't have a lead problem, but they're not making the money that they want to make.
Right.
And the question is why? And the answer was because every single lead requires X number of hours of my time. And I only have X number of hours. So my perceived likelihood of achievement leads me back to, I don't have enough time to make the money. Okay? So that's their perception that's keeping them from achieving their dream outcome.
Yep.
And as we, even before we get to pricing, as we look at the value of what you're offering, your offer has to deal with, here's how we get you back your time.
Yep.
So that you can achieve your dream outcome.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. There are some strategies that fractionals can deploy to help increase this concept of perceived outcome. It's great to say, I can help you, man. Trust me. Doesn't do much to build trust. So to our audience, I would say build a book of proof. What I mean by that is, what are the examples that you can share to show tangibly, not only have you been there before, but you can help them achieve that goal too. So if you're new to fractional, you come out of corporate, you've probably solved these problems before in a corporate environment. Document it. Write a little case study. Do a short video. Get a testimonial that says, I was here before I met Atiba. Here was the problem. Here's how he helped me solve it. And here was the outcome. Some little proof points like that you can just weave into both your marketing, but also into your sort of discovery process will increase the likelihood that they perceive that you're going to be successful.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not just a trust me, dude situation here. You've got to have some proof. The other thing I think is really important as a fractional is, while we're being hired for our area of expertise, marketing, sales, finance, whatever it is, there's a whole other layer of value that we bring that most fractionals don't talk about. Which is just the support, the guidance, the I'm with you in this boat together, that most small business owners don't have. They don't have that experienced person they can lean on and say, what do you think about this situation? We bring that too. Remember, we're part of a client's executive team, leadership team. And it may be a team of one, and then you get hired and it's a team of two. That's okay. But we need to speak to those things, how we support the business owners and executives, even if it's outside of the area of discipline. That's a huge tangible value. And it makes these people feel like, all right, this is achievable. I'm not doing this on my own.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a big one when we're looking at perceived likelihood of achievement, because in the area for which you are an expert, they've probably done some work in this area before, and they've probably failed before, which degrades their perceived likelihood of achievement. And chances are they failed before because they tried to do it themselves, and they thought to themselves, and they had no one else to bounce an idea off of who actually had any level of expertise to give them true advice.
Exactly.
And so that is massive value that as fractionals, we can bring to an organization that's not necessarily as tangible, but this is where, getting back when Dean, you said have a book before, this is where story helps. Okay, so less of a case study and more of a story of, so-and-so that I helped also face a very similar problem. And in that time, I mean, they used to come to me on a weekly basis with a list of questions, and we would make sure that we went through and we make sure that everything was in order and that they had the certainty and they understood. And story helps a ton there.
It does. So lots to think about in this episode. The question at the beginning was, is this the time, right? Is this the time to take the leap and become fractional? And clearly we've given you some tools and strategies to deploy, because the answer is clearly yes. And honestly, the fractional engagement model is the new way, is the most efficient way in many cases to work with clients and clients to hire you. The model's not going away. It is not going away. It's only going to continue to grow. So yes, absolutely. What do they say? When's the best time to plant a shade tree? It was 30 years ago or today. Or today. So take that little story and advice, and if this feels like the time for you to get out of corporate or get out of this sort of consulting project cycle, the revenue roller coaster, if you will, move forward. But start with your intention and make sure it's aligned with your ideal client's intention, and you'll be far more successful than those that just say, I'm a fractional CFO for manufacturers.
There it is. Hey guys, as always, he's Dean. I'm Atiba. We're the Fractional Pros. We'll see you next time.